The Strait of Hormuz is no longer a waterway. It has become a 21-mile-wide throat, and someone has pressed a blade against it. Imagine the global economy as a living, breathing organism. The Persian Gulf is its beating heart, and the strait is the primary artery. Today, that artery is clogged. We sit in a bizarre tactical paradox. The skies are ours. The Iranian mine droppers have been turned into charred driftwood, and yet, the world's most powerful fleet remains paralyzed at the threshold. Why? Because the ghost of a threat is often more terrifying than the threat itself. Even if we've destroyed their primary naval delivery systems, the reality of the rowboat menace looms large. In the world of asymmetric warfare, you don't need a destroyer to sink a billion-dollar tanker. You just need a desperate man in a fiberglass hull and a vintage contact mine. The geography here is a natural trap designed by fate for the sole purpose of maritime ambush. While the strait spans 21 nautical miles, the navigable deepwater channel, the only place these steel leviathans can actually breathe, is a pathetic 6-mile sliver. It's a literal 2-lane highway where pulling over isn't an option. One lane goes in, one lane comes out, separated by a 2-mile buffer zone that feels more like a funeral procession. To the left and right, hostile territorial waters where the rules of engagement are written in shadows. This isn't your grandfather's mine warfare. We aren't just looking for spiked iron balls floating on the surface like something out of a black and white movie. The Iranian arsenal is a masterclass in smart lethality. They have turned the physics of a ship against the ship itself. First, you have the magnetic influence mines. Every time a massive steel hull displaces water, it drags a massive electromagnetic signature with it. The mine sits on the dark seabed, silently feeling the magnetic pull of thousands of tons of steel passing overhead. When the signature peaks, the detonator triggers, sending a shockwave upward that doesn't just poke a hole in the hull. It breaks the ship's back by creating a gas bubble that lifts the vessel and then lets it drop into a void, snapping the keel like a dry twig. Then come the acoustic mines, tuned specifically to the rhythmic thrum of massive propellers. They can be programmed to ignore the high-pitched whine of a patrol boat, but wake up the moment the low-frequency rumble of an oil tanker enters their kill zone. Most insidious of all are the hydrodynamic or pressure mines. They measure the minute change in water pressure as a massive hull displaces the sea above them. You can't fool gravity. If the ship is there, the pressure changes and the mine knows. But the true psychological horror lies in the programmable ship counters. Imagine a convoy of 5 tankers. The first ship passes. Nothing. The crew cheers, thinking the path is clear. The second ship passes. Silence. The third? Safe. But the mine on the seabed has a memory. It was programmed to wait for the 4th ship. It counts the pulses, waits for its specific victim, and detonates directly under the engine room of the unsuspecting vessel. This turns every safe transit into a game of Russian roulette where the cylinder has 100 chambers. This is why the American fleet, the most technologically advanced fighting force in human history, is hovering outside the gates. To clear these bottom mines, minesweepers have to crawl. They have to move at 5 to 8 knots to allow their sonar to paint a clear picture of the seafloor. At that speed, a billion-dollar minesweeper is a sitting duck. It's a slow-moving target for the hundreds of Iranian anti-ship missile batteries hidden in the jagged cliffs of the coastline. The Iranians aren't trying to outfight the U.S. Navy. They are trying to outweight them, using the geography of the strait as a force multiplier that turns our greatest strengths into our most glaring vulnerabilities. The Great Satan has been halted not by a superior fleet, but by a field of invisible, thinking explosives and the sheer claustrophobia of the Persian Gulf. While the mines provide the invisible barrier, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy, IRGCN, provides the visible, chaotic teeth of the Iranian strategy. This isn't a traditional navy, it is a mosquito fleet, designed for a singular purpose: to kill by 1,000 cuts. With over 1,500 fast attack craft at their disposal, the IRGCN operates under a doctrine of absolute asymmetry. They don't want a fair fight, they want a melee. Their fleet is a terrifying spectrum of speed, ranging from the rugged Swedish-designed Boghammer patrol boats to the suicidal velocity of the Hadar 110. The Hadar is a marvel of garage-built high-tech warfare, a carbon fiber ghost capable of screaming across the water at 125 km/h. It's light, it's fast, and by the time a destroyer's radar locks onto its tiny signature, it has already unleashed 2 anti-ship missiles and vanished back into the haze of the coastline. The genius of the IRGCN lies in camouflage through chaos. The Persian Gulf is one of the busiest maritime crossroads on Earth. Thousands of dhows, fishing skiffs, and smuggling vessels crisscross these waters every hour. An IRGCN operative doesn't wear a dress uniform. He wears the salt-stained shirt of a fisherman. Their boats are tucked away in martyrdom bunkers, underground pens carved directly into the limestone cliffs of the coast, invisible from satellite reconnaissance. They don't need a massive naval base that can be leveled by a Tomahawk missile. They need a hidden cove and a ramp. This creates a target identification nightmare for the Americans. If a U.S. captain fires on a suspicious boat that turns out to be full of actual fishermen, it's a global PR disaster and a diplomatic firestorm. If he waits to confirm, that fishing boat might deploy a mine or launch an RPG-7 into the bridge of a billion-dollar cruiser. The IRGCN has turned the entire civilian population of the Gulf into a human shield, forcing the U.S. Navy to play a high-stakes game of Guess the Assassin in a room full of innocent bystanders. This is the mosquito philosophy. You can't swat every fly, but it only takes one infected bite to bring down a giant. In the high-tech theater of 21st-century naval warfare, the United States Navy reached into its archives and pulled out a relic. To counter the mosquito fleet of the IRGCN, they didn't deploy a stealth drone or a hypersonic interceptor. They deployed the A-10 Thunderbolt II, a plane that looks like it was assembled in a tractor factory. The A-10, affectionately and accurately nicknamed the Warthog, was born in 1972 with a singular grim purpose: to fly low over the Fulda Gap in Germany and turn Soviet tank divisions into scrap metal. It was never meant to go fast. It was never meant to be pretty. It was meant to be a flying bathtub of titanium armor wrapped around the largest gun ever fitted to a tactical aircraft. But in the narrow, crowded corridors of the Strait of Hormuz, the very traits that made the A-10 obsolete in a world of Mach 2.0 fighters made it the ultimate maritime predator. The problem with modern multi-role fighters like the F/A-18 Super Hornet is that they are built for the high and fast game. They scream through the sky at altitudes where a 40-foot fiberglass boat looks like a speck of dust. If a Super Hornet pilot wants to identify a target, he has to rely almost entirely on his sensors, or risk a high-speed flyby that leaves him only a fraction of a second to make a life-or-death decision. The A-10 is different. It is a low and slow specialist. With a stall speed that would make a Cessna nervous, the Warthog can cruise over the Persian Gulf at 300 mph, slow enough for the pilot to actually look out the canopy and play detective. From the cockpit of an A-10, a pilot can differentiate between a legitimate dhow hauling spices and an IRGCN Boghammer hiding a crate of naval mines under a tarp. This visual confirmation is the silver bullet against the Iranian tactic of civilian disguise. The A-10 doesn't just see a radar blip, it sees the RPG-7 leaning against the rail. It sees the wake of a boat moving too fast to be a fishing skiff. It brings a human eye to a digital fight, and in the cluttered chaos of the strait, that is an irreplaceable asset. But the real reason the Warthog is the king of this environment is the economy of destruction. War is, at its heart, a balance sheet. An Iranian fast attack craft might cost $50,000 to $200,000 to build. If the U.S. Navy uses an AGM-65 Maverick missile to sink it, they are spending $269,000 to destroy a $50,000 target. That is a losing mathematical equation. The U.S. would run out of million-dollar missiles long before Iran ran out of $1,000 boats. Enter the GAU-8 Avenger. The A-10 is not a plane with a gun. It is a 30-meter Gatling gun with wings. This 7-barrel monster fires milk bottle-sized rounds at a rate of 3,900 rounds per minute. Each round is a 30 mm armor-piercing incendiary projectile, often with a depleted uranium core, the densest material on the battlefield. When an A-10 unzips a burst over a fiberglass or aluminum boat, it doesn't just hit the target, it disintegrates it. A 3-second burst, costing less than $2,000 in ammunition, is enough to turn a Hadar 1-10 into a cloud of carbon fiber and gasoline. The Warthog carries 1,174 of these rounds. While an FA-18 might carry 4 or 6 missiles, a single A-10 can stay on station for hours and theoretically engage dozens of individual targets in a single sortie. The endurance of the A-10 is the final piece of the puzzle. Powered by 2 General Electric TF-34 turbofans, the aircraft is incredibly fuel efficient at low altitudes. While an AH-64 Apache helicopter, the other low and slow option, has to head back to the carrier after a mere 2.5 hours, the A-10 can circle the strait like a vulture for twice that long. With aerial refueling, A-10 pilots have conducted marathon patrols lasting 10 hours or more, effectively putting a permanent lethal umbrella over the shipping lanes. The psychological impact on the IRGCN crews cannot be overstated. They know that somewhere above them, hidden in the haze or the glare of the sun, sits a titanium bathtub that they cannot shoot down with machine guns, and that can erase them from existence before they even hear the sound of its engines. The A-10 didn't just bring firepower to the strait. It brought a persistent, terrifying presence that forced the Mosquito fleet to stay in their bunkers. In the brutal calculus of the Strait of Hormuz, survival is not just about who has the biggest gun, it's about who can take a hit and keep fighting. This is where the A-10 Thunderbolt II separates itself from every other airframe in the American inventory. To understand why the Warthog is the ultimate deterrent against the IRGCN, you have to understand the environment of the Iranian coastline. This isn't open ocean warfare where a carrier strike group sits hundreds of miles away from the threat. In the strait, you are operating in the WEZ, the weapon engagement zone. The Iranian shore is a jagged, mountainous fortress bristling with thousands of shoulder-fired man-pads, Zu-23-2 anti-aircraft cannons, and heavy DSHK machine guns. Any aircraft flying low enough to identify a Mosquito boat is also flying directly into a wall of lead and heat-seeking missiles. Modern stealth fighters are like Ferraris. They are incredibly fast and sophisticated, but a single well-placed bullet in the engine or a fragment through the composite wing can cause a catastrophic FOD, foreign object damage event that sends a $100 million jet into the sea. The A-10, however, is a flying tank. It was built with redundancy upon redundancy. Its 2 General Electric TF-34 engines are mounted high and wide on the rear of the fuselage. This isn't just for aesthetics. It shields the engine exhaust from heat-seeking missiles launched from below and ensures that if one engine is shredded by shrapnel or a man-pad, the other is far enough away to remain functional. There are legendary stories from the Gulf War of A-10s returning to base with half a wing missing, one engine gone, and the fuselage looking like Swiss cheese. In the strait, this hardness is a psychological weapon. The IRGCN crews know that even if they manage to get a lucky hit with an RPG or a heavy machine gun, the Warthog isn't going down. It's going to turn around, find where that shot came from, and delete the source with a 30mm response. The heart of this survivability is the titanium bathtub. The pilot sits encased in 2,200 pounds of titanium armor, capable of withstanding direct hits from 23mm anti-aircraft shells. This allows the A-10 pilot to do something no other pilot can: dwell. They can descend to 500 feet, loiter over a suspicious cluster of boats, and take the time to verify the threat without the constant fear of a single lucky bullet ending the mission. This loiter time is what breaks the back of the Iranian mining strategy. Mining is a delicate, time-consuming process. To drop a line of sophisticated bottom mines, a boat must maintain a specific course and speed. If an A-10 is circling overhead, that window of opportunity never opens. The Iranian crews are forced to stay in their hidden bunkers or oil platform bases, waiting for a gap in the patrol that never comes. The A-10 isn't just an attacker, it is a persistent sentry that has effectively placed the IRGCN under house arrest. Furthermore, The A-10's integration with modern technology has turned this 1970s airframe into a 21st century hunter. While the pilot uses their eyes for final confirmation, they are aided by the Lightning or Sniper Advanced Targeting Pods. These pods provide high-resolution infrared and electro-optical imagery, allowing the Warthog to see in total darkness or through the thick humidity and haze of the Persian Gulf. They can tag a boat with a laser, sharing that coordinate instantly with a nearby destroyer or an AC-130 gunship. This creates a networked web of death. An Iranian boat captain might think he is safe because he is hiding in the shadow of a massive commercial tanker, but the A-10's infrared sensors can pick up the heat signature of his idling engine from miles away. The economic reality of the A-10 is the final nail in the coffin for the asymmetric mosquito doctrine. At $19,000 per flight hour, the A-10 is the blue-collar worker of the Air Force. Compare that to the $44,000 per hour for an F-35, or the massive logistical footprint of keeping a carrier-based squadron in the air. The U.S. can afford to keep warthogs in the sky 24/7. It is a sustainable, grinding pressure that Iran cannot match. They are trying to fight a war of exhaustion, hoping the U.S. will tire of the cost and the risk of patrolling the strait. But the A-10 thrives in the grind. It was built for the dirt, the heat, and the slow, methodical destruction of enemy assets. By choosing the A-10, the U.S. Navy didn't just find a tool to stop the mines. They found a way to make the Iranian strategy of death by 1,000 cuts look like a very expensive exercise in futility. The Warthog has turned the world's most dangerous maritime choke point into its own personal hunting ground. The standoff in the Strait of Hormuz has rewritten the manual on modern naval engagement. It has proven that in the high-stakes game of global energy security, the most sophisticated silver bullet technology isn't always the answer. Sometimes the answer is a flying sledgehammer. By deploying the A-10 Thunderbolt II against the IRGC's Mosquito fleet, the United States didn't just counter a tactic, they dismantled a philosophy. The Iranian doctrine of asymmetric warfare relied on three pillars: invisibility, speed, and economic exhaustion. The Warthog, with its low-altitude loiter time, shattered the veil of invisibility. Its 30mm Avenger cannon, capable of shredding a carbon fiber hull in a heartbeat, neutralized the advantage of speed, and its low operational cost turned the tables on economic exhaustion, making it cheaper for the U.S. to stay in the air than for Iran to put a boat in the water. This is the ultimate irony of 21st century warfare. A Cold War relic designed for the plains of Germany has become the supreme arbiter of a Middle Eastern maritime choke point. The A-10 doesn't need to enter the missile age to be effective. It simply needs to be present. Its mere silhouette on the horizon, the chunky, ugly frame of a plane that refuses to die, is a constant reminder to every IRGCN commander that the moment they attempt to drop a mine or launch a raid, the sky will literally open up with 3,900 rounds of depleted uranium. The Strait of Hormuz remains a dangerous, narrow, and politically charged corridor, but the invisible wall of the minefield has met its match. As long as the warthogs are circling, the Mosquito fleet is confined to its bunkers, and the world's oil continues to flow. The U.S. Navy didn't need to sail its multi-billion-dollar destroyers into the heart of the minefield to win this round. They simply sent a 50-year-old tank buster to do a sailor's job. In the brutal, sun-drenched reality of the Persian Gulf, the A-10 isn't an anachronism. It is the apex predator. The lesson for any adversary is clear. You can hide in a fishing boat, you can hide in a bunker, and you can hide your mines beneath the waves. But as long as the Warthog is hunting, you are never out of sight, and you are never out of range. The titanium bathtub has held the line, proving that in the chaos of the strait, the simplest, toughest tool is still the one that cuts the deepest.